so immensely frustrated. That's going straight in my basket. Give me some of your talent, please. Just give me a smidge. What is this life? What is this life? You're not good enough to be posting this content. Never expected this to happen. Is there anything you wish you had done differently when you first started coloring? Whew. Strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. Today is going to be a nice, long, chatty video. Grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a snack, or even just chuck me on in the background whilst you're doing some coloring, because today I'm going to be recapping my entire 2-year coloring journey so far. Back in October of 2023, I completed my very first coloring page in Johanna Basford's Rooms of Wonder. And I haven't looked back since. In this video, I'll be answering a whole bunch of questions that look back on the last 2 years. Some of the questions I came up with myself because I thought you might be curious to know the answers to them, and others were sent in by my lovely subscribers, you guys. So let's not dilly-dally any longer, let's just get straight into it. Now this of course had to be one of the very first questions that I answered in today's video, and that is, how do your first completed pages compare to your most recent? There is definitely quite a dramatic change between some of those early completed pages compared to what I do now. So let's go to an overhead shot to really see the difference between the two. So here's a little montage of some of the very first pages I ever coloured, obviously from Rooms of Wonder, since that was my first colouring book I owned as an adult. And in a moment you'll also see a couple of pages from Small Victories too, because although Small Victories wasn't my first colouring book, it definitely was the one that got me truly addicted to adult colouring. Now these pages are not bad at all. I did do a lot of crafty and artsy things growing up, no formal training, but it's not like I was starting completely from scratch. However, when you look at some of the more recent completed pages I've done, there's definitely a noticeable transformation. Yes, my technique has improved a lot, but I also think my creativity has evolved too. My colour palettes are much more interesting, and the way I approach shading and detail feels a lot more thoughtful and visually engaging. Question 2 is, how have your colouring tastes or style preferences evolved over time? One major change I can definitely notice in my preferences, I suppose. At the beginning of my journey, I think it was for 6 months, I completely avoided colouring backgrounds. But what actually helped me get over that fear of colouring backgrounds, because I know that's something that is quite prevalent when you start colouring, is just doing more and more of them. I did a lot of videos early on in the beginning of my channel giving background ideas because that's something I struggled with, and doing those videos helped so much, and now doing backgrounds is my absolute favorite thing. I love having heaps of background space in my coloring pages so that I can just have full reign to be super duper creative and either match it to the illustration or do something completely contrasting to create, you know, a really great juxtaposition on the page. And kind of going off that a little bit, I think because I was quite scared of coloring backgrounds, I was very drawn towards intricate, detailed coloring pages at the beginning of my journey. And yet again, I am now the opposite. I love having a little bit more space in my coloring pages so that I can play around with color combos, play around with a few interesting shadows and just shading in general. And I'll touch on one more major thing that's probably changed over time, is that at the beginning of my journey, I really wanted double-sided coloring books because I wasn't really doing that much with alcohol markers, and I just wanted to have my coloring books full of illustrations. I wanted to have as many pages to color in my books as possible. Whereas now I get super excited by single-sided coloring books because I've been introduced to so many new mediums over the last 2 years, and a lot of them do bleed through the page or have the tendency to. And so having that freedom and flexibility with a single-sided coloring book to kind of play with whatever mediums I want, is definitely now something I really look for in my coloring books. Question number 3 makes me a little bit, I don't know, a little bit emotional. It is, Which pages are you most proud of and why? So let's head back over to the overhead camera and talk about those pages. I've spoken about this page plenty of times on the channel, and I can't take full credit for it because I completely recreated Rita Berman's original colouring of this page. But even though the colours and colour palette weren't my own creation, this page will always hold a special place in my heart. It was a real turning point for me. It made me realise just how creative and truly artistic colouring can be. I'm also really proud of this page because it was not only my first time tackling a grayscale illustration, but also my first time colouring a portrait with alcohol markers. I was so incredibly happy with how it turned out. I did use a tiny bit of pencil here and there, but about 95% of the page was done with alcohol markers. And yeah, I'm still really proud of it to this day because it showed me that I don't have to pigeonhole myself as a predominantly pencil colorist. And finally, the last page I'm really proud of is this one that I recently coloured on the channel in my 9 colouring techniques video. That video was kind of a culmination of everything I've learned over the past 2 years, and it really made me realise just how far I've come since the beginning of my colouring journey. Question number 4 is which techniques once intimidated you, but now you really enjoy? As I said earlier, obviously I now really enjoy doing backgrounds. Backgrounds is one of my favourite parts of the colouring process now. And also I'll throw in there is portraits. I only started colouring portraits this year. My very first one was from Tales from the Witch's Cottage by Hannah Carlson. I definitely still have a tinsy bit of hesitancy towards accurately colouring skin and hair. Every time I do another portrait, I get more and more comfortable, and I think that's the same with any technique or anything in life. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. So yeah, hopefully one day I'll be able to say portraits, easy peasy lemon squeezy. I'll also say that I'm slowly enjoying watercolors more as well. Actually, some of my favorite pages that I've used watercolors with is in the very first watercolor video that I did on this channel. I did this like cookie cutter love heart background in the spooky coloring book, and that was so much fun to create, so much easier than I anticipated. And then I also did this sky background in My Tiny Forest with acrylic marker and watercolors, and that turned out being super effective as well. That is still one of my favorite ways that I've used my watercolors. Question number 5, which coloring books in your collection surprised you the most? Ones you never thought you'd own. Now, I've written so many books here in my notes because, yeah, I have so many now in my collection that I never would have anticipated myself owning at the beginning of my journey. I was very much like Johanna Basford girly and Rita Berman girly at the beginning. Now I have so many different artists in my collection, which I absolutely love. I love having a diverse selection of coloring books. The first one I would say is a Kirby Roseanne's book. I now own a Magimorphia. I do think his artwork is just maybe not for me. I think it's a little bit too masculine. I'm a quirky, whimsical colorist, at least at the moment. And so his illustrations I'm not drawn to them to color, but I think his artwork is amazing, absolutely incredible. I also never anticipated owning grayscale coloring books because, I don't know, I just had no clue how you were supposed to enjoy coloring them if the shading is already there, but now I absolutely see what the hype is. I do only own 2 grayscale coloring books, both by Christine Karen, and I will say that I definitely recommend grayscale coloring books or coloring pages for when you're first getting into portraits because the shading is already there for you. It's helping you out. You just need to focus on having accurate skin color combos or hair combos and practicing your hair texture technique. I won't blab on too much longer because there is a big list here, but I also never anticipated owning a mythographic book that is classified as an advanced coloring book, but I still haven't completed a page in it yet. I ended up picking up Wild Summer, and I also never expected this to happen, but I mean, I've always loved Lulu Mayo's coloring books and illustration style. It's definitely up my alley with the quirky and whimsy and everything like that, but I never thought I would own 7 books from her. I think because they are on the more affordable side to get here in Australia, so whenever they go on sale, I'm like, that's going straight in my basket. Yeah, Johanna Basford is the only other illustrator that I own 7 colouring books from, and I never would have expected that Lulu Mayo was on that same level. And the final illustrator that I never expected to own colouring books from is Hannah Carlzon, which is very surprising because she is such a prolific artist in the colouring community. But whenever I saw flip through of her pages, I don't know, I just wasn't super drawn to them. But then all of a sudden one day something just changed. Now I'm obsessed with her illustrations. I absolutely love them and I can't wait to get my hands on her new Halloween colouring book at some point in the future. But currently I own Tales from the Witch's Cottage as well as her Christmas book. And I do partly think me getting into portrait colouring has really helped me appreciate Hannah Carlzon's style because yeah, she does have a lot of portraits in a lot of her colouring books. So I'm now a Hannah Carlzon girly. I love her work. I think she's just so imaginative and talented. Question number 6. What are 3 mediums you never expect to love as much as you do now? Medium number 1 on my list is the Derwent Inktense. I really don't use them as much as I should for how much I love them, but I find them such a versatile medium, I suppose. And their formulation really is just so fascinating because they're basically like ink in a pencil form. You can layer color on top of color without having to worry about reactivating the layer underneath. And so one of my favorite ways I've ever used the Derwent Inktense is for this suitcase page here from Forest and Nature by Rita. I created this really fun galaxy sky effect in the background of the suitcase, and thanks to the layering properties of the Inktense, that galaxy just came out really, really well. And then the second medium, it's gonna be no surprise to you, it is the Neocolor 2s. I swear Karen Dash needs to sponsor me for how much I talk about the Neocolor 2s, but oh, they're just so amazing, and I can't even pinpoint exactly why I love them. I think it's just because they break down on the page so beautifully when you activate them with water. One of my favorite backgrounds that I've ever done with the Neocolor 2s was actually in the video where I tried them for the first time, and I was inspired by a background by @Nolly's World, and oh, I just love the psychedelic nature that the Neocolor 2s created for this background. Question 7. Who or what has inspired you the most throughout your colouring journey? We all know who I'm gonna say here. I am just such a massive fan of Rita Berman. I think she is just one of the most amazing colorists out there. Not only are her coloring books absolutely phenomenal, but the way she mixes colors together is just out of this world. Like if I could even reach half of the talent level of Rita Berman, I think, yeah, life would be complete. I wouldn't need to improve any further. No, that's incorrect. But you know what I mean. I'm also such a fan of Kate Pellerin. She is the one who illustrated the Magical Woodland book that I showed you at the beginning of the video. If you have not seen her artistry, seriously go check out her Instagram. I'll put a few examples on the screen now because the way she mixes with color as well, I think there is kind of a parallel there between Rita Berman and Kate Pellerin. Give me some of your talent, please. Just give me a smidge. I'll take it. I'll take just a little bit. And it's no surprise as well that Sarah Renee Clark has been such an inspiration for me when it comes to colouring and also my colouring content. The way her videos did and still make me feel like I always left watching her videos feeling so inspired, and I just wanted to be able to do that to others as well in the colouring community. So she is a massive contributor in the creation of A Pictured Purpose, and the fact that I've gotten to speak to her over a few video calls now is just like, oh, what is this life? What is this life? Question 8. What's been your biggest colouring mishap? Whew. Now we all know that I'm a big proponent in believing that any colouring page is salvageable. I will not ever try not to save a colouring page, and I will also always finish my colouring pages, even how horrendously they might be turning out. However, there is 2 times in the last 2 years, and I will say they happened very quickly after one another, I've ripped coloring pages out of my coloring books because I got so immensely frustrated. Things weren't turning out well and I had a little bit of a rage moment and was just like, "Rah!" And both of those times were because of masking fluid and watercolors. And I wouldn't even say the mishap was having issues with the masking fluid and the watercolors. I think my mishap was getting so frustrated and tearing out the pages because I look back now and I feel like I could have saved them, you know? Maybe I could have stuck some paper on it and done a collage moment or just covered it with acrylic marker. I'm vowing here today, I can't really put my hand on my heart because of my microphone, but I am vowing I will never tear out a coloring page again. Question number 9 is, did you ever have any doubts during your coloring journey? And if so, what were they? And how did you manage to fight them off? I have doubts every single day of my life. Something I'm constantly struggling with is imposter syndrome, and as this channel has grown, every time I post a coloring page or post a video, I do have this little voice in the back of my head that goes, "You're not good enough to be posting this content. You're not good enough to be posting your coloring pages." But I've always said that I am not creating content to be the best colorist there ever was on YouTube and social media or in the world. I'm here to spread the joy and love of coloring. I'm not here to be the most technical, the most adept, the most talented. I'm here to spread the love and joy of coloring because it's brought so much happiness and fulfillment into my life, and so I want more people to experience that. You know, even though I have so many doubts, I am still scheduling that post. I'm still pressing upload and it gets a little bit easier. That little self-doubt voice in my head starts to diminish a little bit more every day, and also I always get such lovely comments from you all. Thank you all so much if you've ever left a comment on my video, because it seriously just brightens my day and yeah, helps me believe in myself a little bit more and believe that I'm actually doing what I'm trying to set out and do. Question number 10, has your definition of a finished or successful page changed over time? And yes, it definitely has. I do think that as I've developed and grown my skills as a colorist and as an artist in general, you know, I slowly just raise the bar every single time, and I do need to get better at that and acknowledge how far I've come, which doing this video has definitely helped with that. But something I've said since the beginning of my channel and what I try to take on myself is that as long as I've enjoyed the process of coloring, the end result doesn't matter. It's a successful page because I enjoyed coloring. And if I didn't enjoy the process, I really look back and go, okay, why didn't I enjoy the process and how can I improve next time and make sure that I'm enjoying it? This next question is a very big one and I could honestly probably spend an hour answering it. And that is, what are the biggest lessons coloring has taught you? Oh, coloring has taught me so much. I have written down 8 lessons here. I'll try to go through them fairly quickly as to not bore you too much. The first is definitely that creation and creativity is an innate part of who I am as a human being and is a very strong value that I uphold. I've been to therapy in the past and they always say, what are your 5 values in life? What do you value the most? And then you make sure everything you do in your life is, I guess, in accordance to at least one or all of those values. And doing coloring, incorporating that into my everyday life has just changed me so much. It's made me a much more balanced and happier human. And I think as humans, we are meant to be creative, whether that is in an art sense, in a mechanical sense, in a technological sense. I think we do need to be creative. I think, you know, half of our brain is supposed to be the creative side, right? And if we neglect that, we're neglecting half of ourselves. And so I think I think I didn't find the right form of creativity for me for a very long time. But when I found coloring, everything just clicked and it felt right. And it felt like I unlocked a part of myself that had been lying dormant for so long. And kind of going off of that, the next lesson I've learned is the more you do what lights you up and makes you happy, the more you will attract more joy and purpose in your life. I was lacking a lot of purpose in my life before I found coloring. I had no idea what I'd been brought on this earth to do. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with my time and what would bring me the most fulfillment. But as soon as I found the coloring community, all of that fell into place. And even to this day, I still am flabbergasted because, you know, a lot of us do think that coloring is just a kid's activity, but to me at least, it is so much more than that. I still don't fully know where I'm supposed to be going with my life, but the more I color, the more clarity I have. So yeah, if you take anything from that lesson, just do more of what makes you happy, and I think the answers will come. Apologies if the angle's a little bit different. My camera decided to overheat because I've been yapping so much. But the next two lessons that I've learned kind of go hand in hand, and that is to not be scared of failure and to feel the fear and do it anyway. I said that before. I've been doing so many more challenges this year, and yeah, they are a little bit scary and intimidating, those challenges. But the reason why I keep doing them is because they always push me outside my comfort zone. And even when I do make mistakes, which happens very frequently, I find myself improve exponentially as a colorist every time I push myself outside of my comfort zone. So yes, don't be afraid of trying that thing you've been wanting to try, because I promise, even if it turns out to be an absolute disaster, you're still improving yourself as a colorist. I'll put these next two lessons together actually as well. It's good things take time, and also trust the process. What I love about coloring is that it really does take a while to complete a coloring page, at least it does for me. And I've really grown to love the slow process of completing a coloring page. There's just something so gratifying of finally finishing an illustration that you've been working on for weeks. And in this society, we're so used to those dopamine hits. Whereas working on a coloring page and it taking a gazillion months and you finally finish it, oh, there is just no better dopamine hit than that. And that one's a lot more long lasting, and I think just better for us and our brains as human beings. And also trusting the process, trusting the amount of time it takes. And also, I feel like a lot of the time my pages look absolutely horrendous for 90% of the process, and I'm second guessing myself, I'm worrying, but I always need to remind myself to trust the process, because 99% of the time it all works out in the end. And I'm like, oh, why was I worried? It looks so much better than I anticipated. And another big lesson that I've learned through at least my content creation part of my coloring journey is that you can't please everyone. The more my channel has grown, the more criticism I've started to get. And sometimes those comments really do hit home and hurt my little colorist soul. I am a very sensitive human being in general. I always try to be the bigger person and understand where they're coming from, or also just understand that they might be a bit of a weirdo on the internet and I shouldn't take what they say to heart. There's this saying where it's like, you could be the juiciest, the freshest, the ripest apple, but there's still gonna be people in the world that don't like apples. So yeah, you can't please everyone, Kira. Even though you want to, you can't please everyone. And then the final lesson I've learned is that you cannot force creativity. I've forced it quite a bit in my coloring journey, just because, you know, I'm always like, I need to get more pages out for people to see. I need to get more videos out. But every time I've done that from a place of pressure and forcedness, the result is never good, and I'm never happy with the end result. So taking a step back from coloring every now and again when I'm feeling a little bit burnt out, and maybe doing a more chatty video like this one, really helps to, I guess, I don't know, alleviate the pressure I sometimes put on myself. And also just trust that with a little bit of a break, with a little bit of pause, that creativity will come on back. Question number 12, is there anything you wish you had done differently when you first started coloring or creating coloring content? Number one is that I really, in at least a coloring sense, I wish I had diversified my coloring collection right at the beginning. I was so hell-bent on being a Johanna Basford and Rita Berman stan, and I kind of only had those two illustrators within my coloring book collection, and I think that kind of limited me in a way as a colorist. Diversifying my collection really just, I don't know, I feel like made me more well-rounded, and it also helped me appreciate different art styles as well. And I think different art styles can also bring out a different side of your coloring too. I also wish I hadn't compared myself to so many others at the beginning of my journey. It's something I still fall into the trap of now when I'm not in a great headspace. I would make myself feel like SHIT because I was comparing myself to people who had been coloring, you know, for 10 years and I'd been coloring for 2 months, which is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot compare your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 50. And also we all have such different experiences and backgrounds and upbringings that there is no point for comparison. So I've really gotten better at, I guess, taking my self-worth away from appreciating other people's art and talents. Another thing I wish I'd done differently is just lean into my unique voice and sense of creativity sooner. When I first started creating YouTube content in particular about coloring, I did find myself pigeonholed a little bit because I thought there was a right way to create coloring content, you know? As soon as I released myself from that stronghold, I think I've especially done that this year, that's when I've noticed people really loving and enjoying my content because I am just being myself. I'm putting my own unique creative voice out there into the internet. And I do get a lot of questions asking, you know, what advice would you give people who want to start creating content about coloring? And that is my biggest advice I could give you, is just be you. Definitely you can get inspiration from other creators, but don't feel like you have to do exactly what they're doing. Think about the content you would love to watch and create that. There's no point trying to be like me because you're not me. You need to be like you because there's only one of you. And I think that's what really appeals to me as someone who consumes a lot of content but also creates a lot of content. It's just how there's so many different humans out there in the world. And although we can have, you know, a shared love of coloring, for example, we can have such different perspectives and takes on it. This next question is great, segueing from that answer. What's been your favorite part about being a part of the coloring community? I think it is that word itself, community. I love being a part of this human collective that's found this hobby that is kind of niche, but we all have such a passion and love and joy for it. And I think it's because a lot of people don't get it. They think of coloring and they think of kids scribbling on a page, but as you can tell from how much I've blabbed in this video, it is so much more than that. And I've loved being a part of this community who just get it. And we can all fangirl together, we can all love coloring together, and yeah, it's so hard to put into words, but those who get it, they get it. Question 14, are there any techniques or mediums you still want to try but haven't yet? Number 1 is distress inks. I need to try them out because I've seen so many people just using them in their coloring pages recently and they just look phenomenal. So that's number 1 on the list. I also have so many alcohol marker techniques I want to try out, which may or may not be my next video on the channel, so stay tuned for that. I also saw Emily Illustrator. I don't know what her handle is exactly, I'll put it on the screen, but she did this kind of, I think the proper term for it is pointillism, where she colored a page in Small Victories only with fine liner dots. And I'm like, I need to try that. And then the final one, which is something that Sarah Renee Clark has been experimenting with recently, and I think she's kind of dubbed the term, that is dopamine coloring, where you basically scribble all over a page and then do some light shading afterwards, and it just seems so much fun. Definitely check out her Instagram. Actually, I'll put the post on the screen right now so you can see it. I need to try it. I need to try it. Second last question, we're nearly at the end, people. What are you most excited to achieve or explore next? We all know I've been on my color theory, color mixing journey at the moment, so I'm really excited to just keep delving and learning more about that and improving my skills in that way. I'm also just really excited to keep growing this channel and growing the Pictured Purpose community. Keep an eye on my Instagram stories as well as my community tab here, because I may or may not be launching a Patreon, say on the 20th of October, sometime around then, maybe, who knows. All right, we're finishing off now. One more question. What would the Kira of today tell the Kira of 2 years ago who was just starting to color? I would tell her to not be afraid to color outside the lines, literally and metaphorically. I was so pedantic and so much of a perfectionist at the beginning of my coloring journey. I felt like there was only one right way to color, but as soon as I started experimenting, as soon as I started thinking outside the box, that's when my creativity fully bloomed, and I'm finding my unique coloring voice with every page that I do. I come up with ideas for coloring pages a lot more easily now because I don't constrain myself to what is on the page. There are so many possibilities, so many color choices, so many mediums, and as soon as I realized that about coloring, that's when the game completely changed. I'm a tired little bean, I'm a tired little colorist. That was a very long chatty coloring session. I hope you enjoyed it. This was also just a tiny portion of the questions that you guys sent in, so do not worry, I've written all the questions down and I've got them in a list on my computer, and I'm just gonna keep answering the questions throughout future videos, throughout future cozy coloring vlogs. And I'd also love to know if you liked this sort of sit down chatty video. I personally love having a long chatty video on in the background whilst I'm coloring, so let me know if this is a kind of content format you'd like to see again in the future. But in the meantime, happy coloring friends. Have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!